Hey, how's it going? All right. So now we are up to chapter 5 in our deep dive of Forge of Darkness, book 1 of the Karkanas Trilogy. And this chapter 5 is basically, it's about 40 something pages long. And it basically is detailing Arathan's journey um, through the vast plain of the Bareth Solitude and um, with a lot of ancient beach ridges and water-worn limestone cobbles and ridges and so on and so forth. The And this journey is that Arathan is on. Arathan um, is uh, is a journey in more ways than one. Um, so once again, forget the glasses because I gotta be able to see these little print stuff. But So, anyways, getting into this chapter um, is very interesting because we're following this. We're not only following this journey across a region in Corral Galen. We're also following the journey of a young man uh, growing into a man in different ways. And so the uh, the importance of that is that as a young man, Arathan has a shadow over him, and that's exactly what's one of the first things I underlined him was when he was looking at pulling his, packing up, pulling strings, taking care of his belongings, and then a shadow falls over him. He looks up, and of course it's his father, Dragonus, Lord Dragonus, and he's questioning him, "Why aren't you ready?" Um, and Arathan feels his throat tightening. He's choking the words. He just looks up silently. So he gets that intimidation overwhelms him, which is common for a young man who is intimidated not just by maybe his father, but a father figure or a mentor figure or somebody even who is an older, respected person who has a lot of gravitas behind him, a lot of respect from other people in his society, and so he swallows and he's silent. He's like a deer in the headlights, basically. So um, and so he gets remonstrated. He gets, what do you call that? Um, he gets talked down to for not being ready, and then he's talking to his tutor later on. His tutor, Sigander, um, man, that guy, he's a piece of work. Uh, he tells him that his sisters didn't want to see him off, but his father commanded that his sisters see him off. And he tells him the girls despise him. And he asks him if he knows why. And Arathan simply says, "Because I was born to the wrong mother." And this guy, the way he explains him things to Arathan is just, it's just despicable. It's just despicable. Um, and I had some notes here. Anyways, the they traveled on. The day would be hot, and the way ahead promised no hope of shade. Arathan could feel sweat trickling down beneath his heavy clothing. It was hard to believe that only a short time ago he had been shivering, feeling lost in a courtyard he had known all his life. Now the sky was lightening, unrelieved by any cloud, and it was the blue of ice and steel, and the new sun felt hot on his back. So what does that mean? It's it seems that even the journey the story we've had from Arathan so far is he doesn't fit anywhere, and it seems now that even the weather is conspiring against him somehow. You know, before when he was at home, he was shivering with the cold, and now, and he was lost. Even where he knew, even a place he knew very well, he was lost, and now he's in the middle of nowhere, and the sun's beating down on him. Everything's going against this kid. That's the point there. Everything's going against this kiss. Um, and it just continues on where his father and this tutor, Sagander, um, just constantly, constantly on this kid's case. Even the Sergeant Raskin, um, Arathan. Even him. He chooses. I forget where he chooses the horse, but let's see here. Yes. So Arathan's been riding this horse that's a mare, Besra. Yeah. Um, and he was not riding his war horse. That was part of the problem. Earlier too, he didn't decide to ride his war horse. Everybody looked down on him for that. And then when they got to the stream for the horses to drink, it is customary for people to lead their war horses first because they're kind of considered more important. But Arathan decided to lead Besra first, and he got a bunch of flack from that, from all the soldiers and stuff like that. And Arathan's justification for that was that he just thought that we should honor each and every beast that serves us. So, which sounds pretty nice to me, but they didn't like that. And he was called out for challenging Teist ways, and there's a little thought in his head that only men like his father can challenge Teist ways. So that's pretty significant, I think. All right, so we're moving on here. And what we got here? Some soldiers talking amongst themselves. And let's see here. One of the soldiers, Ferrin, says, "I like what he did with the horses. Traditions are all very well, but they started for good reasons. These days, it seems everybody's so caught up in the forms they forget those reasons. The boy was right. You share with the beast that serves you. That's how you give thanks." So she's throwing some contradiction at her fellow soldiers. One of them, who is her brother, Rint. And so then we move on to let's see here. Oh, Ferrin is now talking with Arathan. She introduces herself to him. And she mentions to him that the first taste of the meat must be Draconis's. That this is like they're camping and they make the meat from the kill. Somebody went hunting, and the first taste must be Lord Draconis's, and the second must be Arathan's. And he's like, he insists. He's like, "I'm just a bastard son. I don't need that." And she says, "Well, you're about to come of age. And from that day forward, you're your own man. We all had mothers and fathers. But when we come of age, we stand in our own shadow and none others." That's pretty good advice, really, actually. If you're called a bastard, then it's a failing of your father's, not yours. So that's somebody who's standing up to tradition. Is this soldier Ferrin, and sorry about that. So we have let's see here. He notices Arathan that Draconus doesn't stick around for it's like the easy conversation that soldiers have. You know the and he wonders about what quality of character his father possesses to ensure loyalty when when camaraderie is so clearly absent. Was it only because Mother Dark chose to name him consort? Hmm, that's an interesting question. Um, there's a mention of Draconis fighting in the Farukan War, which is cool. It's expected. Um, and then he's talking to his tutor again, and the tutor's remonstrating him for speaking with with the soldiers, like talking to them regularly. And the tutor's like saying, "Ah, you don't want to be hanging around with them. They carry lice. Those lower people, the diseases and stuff." And he's like, "Oh yes, sir. Okay." He doesn't mean it, but anyways, and he goes on later on about these weaknesses. He says he's saying stuff like weakness is a choice. Oh my god! Wow. Yeah, and yeah, strength is always strength, and weakness is always weakness. You think confused thoughts, and when you voice them, and the confusion infects others. No more questions from you. uh yeah, because Arathan's questioning his you know choice of words, and then he says, Sagander, the tutor, says something about improper unions, and Arathan says, "Oh, am I my father's weakness?" And Sagander gets pissed off about that because Arathan's using his lord as a means to counter the tutor's example, which the tutor does not like. He backhands Arathan, and then Arathan is riding the warhorse. The warhorse freaks out, and bam, bad things happen to the tutor. Uh, you don't slap somebody who's on a warhorse. Come on, tutor. How dumb are you? Anyways, um, that's funny. So they finally they find out that Arathan eventually fell off the horse after the horse stomped on the tutor and could have killed him if Arathan didn't pull the war horse off the last second before he fell. And Arathan has he hit his head and he has a mild concussion. And I was like, oh, finally, somebody who gets knocked out in a fantasy novel actually wakes up with a concussion. You hardly ever see that, so that's fun. Um, anyways, the tutor's leg is ruined, and they're going to have to make a detour to drop him off. They're gonna get rid. Draconis is getting rid of him, but that comes a little bit later. Let's see here. Yes, Riskan. Sergeant Riskan was talking now to Lord Draconus, and Draconus is getting a little philosophical. He's looking at the swirl of stars, and he says, "The swirl of stars marks the plunge of light into darkness." That's interesting. The plunge of light into darkness. Yeah. So we're always talking about light and darkness in this whole novel here. And each star swirls its path towards the center, and in that center there is death, the death of light, the death of time itself. And then he relates that to Teist. Teist, he says, Teist are comforted by their own ignorance. Now, um, why does he, why doesn't he say we are comforted by our own ignorance? He's separating himself from Teist. Hmm. All right. I'll say no more for those of you who haven't read this before. All right. Uh, so this was a this was the first. There's a mention of let's see. There's some more. Arathan is waking up and he's thinking about time. And there was a time there was like when the stars were but holes in the fabric of the night, a thinning of blessed darkness, and in that ages long past there had been no stars at all. The dark was complete, absolute. This was in the time of the first Teist, in the age of gifts, when harmony commanded. So, how old, does this race have to be when they're around when there was no stars? That's pretty crazy. Of course, it's all just philosophical um, nonsense that he learned from Saganda. So who knows how real that is? So you got to keep the source in mind there, right? Something Erikson is quite good at having us do, pointing out that the sources may not always be correct. And so then Draconis is talking to Arathan again, and he has given me, he says, listen well, for giving me this one thing to respect in my son. You have my gratitude. And he has his gratitude for actually pointing out how much how much oh no, that's Draconis is saying that to Sagander, because he's actually telling Sagander off finally. And he's telling him, Sagander, we're going to drop you off and forget about you. You will live with the monks. um, and that was interesting because uh, yeah, it was this tutor is not his own thoughts betray him here. And when Draconis leaves, this tutor is like he's kind of vowing revenge, and that's interesting. Like, what could he do? Maybe we'll find out. Who knows? Yeah. Uh, the sergeant tells the tutor that the helmet was responsible for the concussion, not his blow. But nobody believes that. All right. Anyways. An interesting thing. Arathan goes to the latrine pit. He sees Saganda's leg lying in the pit like an offering in a nest of blood-soaked clothes. And I just found that very interesting because he now sees Sagander as nothing but flesh and bone, and just a piece lying in a latrine pit. So he's a piece of crap, basically. Anyways, that that imagery was very metaphorical there. And yeah, then Arathan is speaking with Draconis, and he's like, he thinks he misspoke. He thinks he screwed up. Still, he thinks he misspoke. But Draconis was like, tells him there's no dishonor in the question you asked about whether or not you are my weakness. And he tells him, yeah, you are. Um, and because not because he's gonna like stab him in the back or anything like that. That's something I guess that other Tice nobles have worried about, but Draconis isn't quite worried about that. He's more worried about people using Arathan against him in one way or another, in more imaginative ways than just a personal betrayal of stabbing him in the back. Um, one of the Arathan manages always to bring up these interesting interesting points when people are talking philosophy to him, and he tells Draconis, telling him, "You have no cause to love me or feel any manner of loyalty towards me." And he says, "I did not know, sir." And Draconis says, "You did not know what?" And he says, "I did not know that love needs a cause." That's that was a conversation ender. That was a mic drop right there. Yeah. All right, so then we get to Risk, Rint. I'm sorry, Rint, Farron's brother, and he's mad. He's mad that see what happened was Farron. Yes, Farron, at the behest or in I don't know, at the behest of Draconis, I guess. But I don't know. She's kind of her own person, so maybe she wanted to do it anyways. But she ended up sleeping with Arathan and kind of, turning the boy into a man type of thing. But she's insistent that it was her choice, and she had previously lost a both a husband and a son. Um, they both died for whatever reasons were given, and so she feels free to do what she wants, and there's no she doesn't need permissions, she doesn't need encouragements or what have you. And Arathan's, he's a good looking guy, um, so she gets together with Arathan, and Arathan learns something about growing up with that incident. Um, Her brother's not so happy about all this. She thinks that Rint thinks that Draconis is using her, and blah blah blah. She sets him straight, but he's not. He's still not happy about it. We then get so that that comes into play with Arathan's journey into adulthood. Um, we then get introduced to a new Azathani. His name is Grisen Farrell, the one known as Protector. Uh, he's supposedly Thel Akai half-blood and a mate to Kilmandaros, who we met her, one of the elder gods there. Um, and he's a happy guy. He comes down, he calls Draconis his friend, um, and he's quite boisterous, and he brings some Thelakai booze, I guess, and everybody has a good time. Um, then he tells stories. Arathan wanted to hear more about darkness as a sword, as a weapon, something that Grisen Farrell mentioned in his stories. And it's also mentioned that Grisen Farrell knew who his mother was, or who is who his mother is, like she's still alive. Hmm. So Arathan has something to think about that, and he thinks that he's kind of like a bird. Uh, or he wants to be like a bird because he wants to hide, and because the bird is hiding, in the branches and the leaves. It is free. It's free to fly away from all this. So in these moments, Arathan is showing longing. And showing longing for something means you have hope for something, right? So that's very interesting. And then the chapter finally ends with him saying he vows to himself to find his mother and take them both away. And they will love each other. And from that love, there will be peace. That is the last words in this chapter, which exactly mirrors the first words in chapter 1. There will be peace. Um, Carved by Arathan. So the book starts with Arathan carvings. The book ends with Arathan coming upon Arathan, revealing that his mother is possibly still alive, and both of them, and beginning and end with "There will be peace." Fantastic capstone because that ends part 1 of this book in these gifts, the shapes of adoration. So you see how that all ties in with the whole mother and yeah, and there will be peace and what have you. So cool, very cool stuff. That's the end of chapter 5, and wow, I went on a long time, so apologize if that was too long, but there was a lot to unpack in that chapter, and yeah, so I hope you got more out of it than even I did, and I hope you all are good to each other. Thank you.